about your videos at the Foam Palace. You've done a lot of music videos. What inspired you to start this series at the Foam Palace? Can you describe what that place looked like compared to a 10,000 square foot venue on South Michigan Avenue? What's your experience with the DIY scene here in Chicago?
I met Chris Lee, who's the audio dude who lives at the Foam Palace, through Young Camelot. And uniquely enough, Chris Lee lives in a place with a few people who are involved with Young Camelot at this house in Humboldt Park that I think was condemned, and the owners of it bought it and sort of kind of resurfaced it, and essentially are renting it out to like a bunch of like young kids who don't really give a fuck what their house looks like. And so the basement of this house is the Foam Palace, and the whole house is very compressed. It feels like a time warp. The paint is peeling. You can see like the decades like beneath every surface of this house. And a good friend of mine, Nick Collins, who moved to LA a few years ago, helped start this sort of online series of local musicians playing in this basement, the Foam Palace, working with Chris Lee. And Nick is a good friend of mine, and when he moved away, we sort of sat down and talked about like the future of using this space and showcasing local acts. And I think for him, I kind of was like, well, is there a website? Is there some sort of like PR? I don't know. I was like, let's make this profitable. Not like profitable, but like, let's get people to watch this. And when I took it under my wing, I sort of focused on like female-led local acts, just because that was something that I think deserves more airtime. And through VAM Studio, which is like an underground art studio I work for, and a few other studios, I sort of created this outlet for local female musicians to create this sort of live content in a very unique setting. So the Foam Palace is this grungy basement Chris Lee owns, and it's also his recording studio. And so I started working with a lot of local musicians in this basement and creating content for them, but also like creating connections of, oh, Hannah, like we need a music video, or like, hey, come take pictures of us when we're playing at Schubas, or anything like that. And it sort of found its own, and people have contacted me because I think there's some sort of, I mean, I went to school for cinematography, and that's like what I want to do, is create very beautiful images, but also like moderate that in a way where it's useful to other people. And I think,
where can people watch the videos so that when they leave today they can watch your series?
The series currently at this moment is called Front Woman on vamstudio.net, and we've worked. Front Woman itself is, so the Foam Palace series has sort of taken is like worn different hats, but it's all filmed and shot in the Foam Palace. But Front Woman is this like female-led specific series on VAM, where we worked with Oshwa and like La 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 La, and they're playing tonight at Empty Bottles Cherry Glazer. No Men, Jordan Reynolds from Buffalo Rodeo, Luna Day, Drea the Vibe Dealer. I don't know, it's kind of this like eclectic group. I mean, we work with White Mystery, Vivian McConnell from Grandkids. It's kind of just like all these like women who are doing things, and a lot of these women are kind of creating their own solo records, and I want to be able to highlight that in a way that deserves recognition. But yeah, I mean, I think what I was thinking, I was like on the toilet being like, wow, like why is DIY important to me? But like community, I was thinking like it's essentially creating a community of your friends that is public to other people. So you are with people that you know and love, but you're opening it up to people that might need that sort of outlet. And I think with Young Camelot, that's what it was. It was a lot of people who loved each other and lived together, and I would sense that from Feeltrip as well. But then opening the door to allow other creatives to come in and sort of experience something. And I think with Chris Lee and the Foam Palace, it's like, it's a weird place where beautiful things can happen, and let's just have as many people in as we can to sort of create like an intimate experience for people.
And Young Camelot, which Hannah's bringing up, was actually, has anyone ever heard of it or been to Young Camelot in Humboldt Park? That was a Jehovah's Witness church that was transformed into a DIY venue. So, you know, David, you're talking about finding this, like, it used to be an auto storage facility where Feeltrip was. These are kind of like forgotten spaces in forgotten areas in whether it's Chicago or New York that where, like Hannah was saying, beautiful things happen. And people open up these spaces as their home to the community. And it's interesting to see what happens because, well, it's your home and these are maybe private events, you know, they're performances. And where Schubas is a properly licensed venue, obviously, these DIY spots have more of a gray area. And that's kind of what we'll see in this film today. And Josh, running CIMMfest, you also have a history as a musician. You were talking about one of the places that you lived here in Chicago. Where was that when you lived in a DIY spot?
Yeah. Has anyone been to Salvage One?
Yep.
I lived there before it was Salvage One. So yeah, yeah, and that was in 1999. And certainly there were lots more before that. I mean, the Warehouse, house music rose out of the Warehouse. There's this place called the Lab, which was north of Lake Street, in that little Lake Street, Ashland corridor. So there's a long history in Chicago of these warehouse spaces, sort of underutilized spaces, forgotten spaces that artists and progressive thinkers and doers sort of seek out to find a place to bring together and create a community of like-minded people, to do weird things, to do things that aren't on the radar of the man or whomever.
The man.
The man. Yeah, it's like this is how culture gets created, really. It's really an incubator. And yeah, during that time, like, I moved to Chicago in 1995, and I moved up here to join a band, didn't know what I was doing. Towards the end of 99, it was like I really knew what the fuck I was doing, and I was like, I was going to be in a band, I was going to have a hot pot, and I was going to live in a warehouse space like Quicksilver, like Kevin fucking Bacon. So I was like, that was my goal, and I'm doing that, and I found that space, and we talked a little bit about what was happening with the Oakland situation and
Right,
the fire and
the
all
ghost
this.
ship.
The ghost ship
Incident that just occurred, yeah.
So that's the dark side of what can happen in these illegal spaces. So I moved into the Salvage One space, and there was a paint business, a lacquer business that was going on. And the people who lived there before me like moved out because they woke up with blue lips and couldn't sleep there anymore. Were having real issues, and I had this funky roommate of mine who was just like one of those really psychotic people that knows everything about everything, like engineering wise, and so we figured that problem out real quick, and then but those people were still there, so it was still like dangerous, like rats and shit
Right.
were running around,
or garbage or whatever.
yeah, so it was like it has to be that way because I paid total, it was like $125 a month in rent. You know, so I was working at Uncle Dan's, and I was playing in my band, you know, and that felt like, and I look back on it now, and I'm like, damn, I was living, like that was life, that was immense, and it was super important and all-encompassing. So those moments are fleeting, but that's where the real shit happens, I feel like, and it continues throughout history. It's been happening for a very long time, and hopefully it will continue, because that's where the real shit's going on.
Yeah, and you know, what's really interesting too is, that really stands out to me, there's a poster that Frank OK just released where it lists every DIY venue name that's happening in Chicago, has happened recently. And some of these names are hilarious. You know, where Young Camelot is one where it's like the Knights of Young Camelot, and a lot of these names of these venues kind of like evoke the spirit of the groups that run them. We used to go to Mortville and Treasure Town and Animal Kingdom. They're almost like gangs a little bit.
It is. It's like warriors.
Yeah, the Warriors and the baseball Furies from that.
It's like a rallying point, you know. It's like this idea that giving something a name, it's a place to like tell people like I'm part of this collective. I feel this is really fueling the spirit kind of thing.
And I wanted to ask David what inspired the name Feeltrip, because Feeltrip is now a label. So where did that story come from? Was there one?
It was, yeah, there was. There were so many different names that they were going through, and we just decided to take two buzzwords. Like everyone throws in buzzwords into a hat, so we all threw in a bunch of buzzwords. The first two ones that we pulled out were feel and trip.
Yeah.
Okay, so trip feel, no, so we're like, all right, feel trip.
And you know, like, what's really interesting is Josh brought up this ghost ship incident that happened in Oakland. I'm sure everybody heard about that. It was one of the worst disasters that has actually occurred in Oakland's history, where there was a DIY show and some sort of fire that occurred. They're still trying to get to the bottom of it, and how many people passed away? It was maybe 50, 65 people, something like that, perished in this disaster. And you know, that's one of the risks of running something in an abandoned Jehovah's Witness church or in a huge industrial space. So I wanted to ask you, David, you know, there must have been some wild things that happened. Did the good outweigh the bad? You know, like, was there a specific example where you're like, ooh, this might be kind of dangerous, or you know, just a story from your experience?
Like when we first started, the first show that we ever threw was Dirty Beaches. It was a Pitchfork after party, and immediately the place got filled up to 300 people, and everyone knew about our venue, so all these big acts just wanted to play there. And from there on, like, the acts just kept getting bigger and the crowds kept getting bigger. And in about 6 months, a group of kids had contacted me. They were called Save Money. Nobody knew who they were then, and they told us who they were. It was Chance the Rapper, Vic Mensa, Joey Purr, my friend Mojack, and his kid Tokyo. And there was a little bit of buzz around them. And we're like, okay, let's do a New Year's show for the Save Money. And Chance the Rapper was supposed to close out the night. We didn't know, we'd never been to one of their shows, we didn't know how big they were or how popular they were gonna be. But we said, okay, let's do it. And we had thrown shows with like Twin Peaks, the Orwells, like I said, Dirty Beaches. We had no problems at all with capacity. It's a 10,000 square foot place. So 300 to 400 people is totally doable. And the doors opened at 9, and I kid you not, like by 10, maybe 10:15, the entire, like, wall-to-wall filled, 4 staircases all the way down, and as far, maybe like a whole block. So there was no hiding. Like, there was like 800 people in our house. It took me 30 minutes to get from the stage to run downstairs to tell the door guy to like not let any more people in. And we started to get a little bit scared, like, this could be like a hazard. We don't even know if the floors could hold these people up. So we're like all making phone calls, like, you know, what do we do? And sure enough, like, the fire marshal came and just busted the whole show. And if anything, it was like a huge relief. And this was before the Oakland fire or anything. And after that, like, all of us understood, like, okay, like, we lost the show, it's fine. Everyone from Save Money was cool about it. And it just became like a thing. Like, we remembered that. It's like, all right, we have to have a hard cap on how many people would come in. And we gotta like count heads and let like everyone know too, like every act that comes through, like, our capacity is this many people. And if you think you're gonna go past that, like, maybe we're not the venue for you.
Right.
And
so you learned your lesson at least in like an easy-ish kind of way.
It was stressful for a little bit, but then it got solved.
And, yeah, go ahead, Hannah.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like